In Skyrim, every place has a rhythm, from the roar of the dragons over Whiterun's walls to the hammer strikes in Riften's blacksmith district. The world breathes with sound and story. Towns pulse with politics. Holds burn with war. Even the roads carry tension, danger, and movement. And yet, between all this noise, there's a farm. Just a little patch of dirt sitting east of Riften's outer gate, tucked along a quiet stretch of road. It's not cursed, not burned, not haunted. There's no standing quest marker, no looming Daedric shrine. But this farm lingers, not because of what happens here, but because of what doesn't. It's not empty, but it's just forgotten. And that may be the loneliest fate of all. You'll find Snowshod Farm just outside the city of Riften. Step through the gates and take a hard turn to the east, past the stables and across the gently dipping path toward the tree line. There's a barn, a home, a few sparse vegetable patches. You may not even notice it the first time, especially if you're galloping past on a stolen horse or chasing down a Thieves' Guild mark. The architecture is modest, even by Skyrim's rural standards. There's no stronghold wall like in Whiterun's farms, no fortress-style timber like those near Windhelm. It looks more like a lean-to with ambition. But then you see the name, Snowshod, a family name, tied to one of Riften's wealthiest, most powerful clans. And suddenly, the quiet of the place feels intentional. Because Snowshod Farm isn't just a home, it's a placeholder. The Snowshod family, led by Volwulf Snowshod, is a known power in Riften. Conservative, pro-Stormcloak, and fiercely devoted to Talos worship. They're not just wealthy, they're politically entrenched. But that power doesn't extend to the farm. Snowshod Farm is not run by the powerful Snowshod family directly. In fact, they never appear here at all. Instead, it's tended by two ordinary people, Advild and Leonara. They're not married, they're not siblings, they're not even particularly close, at least not in any obvious way. They live in the same house, tend the same soil, speak the same scripted lines. But they barely acknowledge each other. Their connection, if it exists at all, is buried under routine. Leonara often complains about life on the farm, remarking how hard the work is or how cold Riften's outskirts can be. Advild, meanwhile, is distant and terse. He doesn't talk much, he doesn't offer insight, he just exists there, like a man who was assigned a place and never questioned it. There are no quests tied to either of them, no letters, no hidden tensions, no revelations. They're just here, caretakers of someone else's property, lives suspended in a loop, not farmers by passion, not family by blood, just two figures caught in the same still frame. And somehow that makes the farm even lonelier, because it's not just isolated physically, it's also emotionally empty as well. Advild isn't alone technically. His wife Leonara lives on the farm too. She's polite, quiet, functional. But if you talk to her long enough, you'll pick up on something strange. She speaks more like a steward than a spouse. There's no affection, no bickering, no routine shared between them. They live near each other, but not with each other. And for a married couple in Skyrim, where even bandits write romantic notes to each other, that distance feels somewhat chilling. It raises the question, was this an arranged marriage, a fallout from the war, a social maneuver that withered? Or perhaps, like so many in Skyrim, they simply stayed together because there was nowhere else to go. Or because they actually truly love each other. You'd think that being the only named farm just outside of Riften would make Snowshod Farm essential to the city's food supply, but it isn't. The crops are pretty bare, leeks, potatoes, cabbage, enough to sustain a household, but not a district. There's no trading route, no contract with the Blackbriar family, thank God. No guards posted at the gate. Even the chickens wander freely, pecking at frost and dirt. The economy of this place is in stagnation. It produces enough to justify its existence, but never enough to change it. And that makes Snowshod Farm feel less like a business and more like a penance. Step into the farmhouse and the silence deepens. There's no children's toys, no family heirlooms, no locked chests or hidden stashes of war trophies. Just bare walls, practical furniture, and a few loose vegetables. This isn't a home. It's basically a bunker. There's only one notable item of any consequence: a copy of the Oblivion Crisis, a historical account of the Mythic Dawn's attack during the events of the Elder Scrolls IV. It's not a rare book, but its presence here feels symbolic. A story of a past cataclysm, sitting alone in a quiet home that no longer engages with the present. Skyrim is no stranger to quiet farms. In fact, many of them dot the map like forgotten breadcrumbs. Outposts of grain, goats, and solitude that rarely demand your attention. But most of them still feel like they're part of something. Battleborn Farm sits just outside Whiterun's gates. You can see guards from the porch. The fields connect to one of the game's most important cities, and it belongs to a political faction and a family tangled in the Civil War tensions. You can feel the pressure around it. Holyfrost Farm lies near Windhelm and is run by Torsten Cruelsea, a character tied to the player through quests. Even its livestock has a purpose, and the people who work there have names, relationships, and consequences. Coulter's Farm by Solitude's Dock is a major carriage hub, a small place with big utility. It feels like a waypoint, a resting place between stories. But Snowshod Farm, it has none of that. No quest lines, no history, no player utility. Even the people who work there, Advild and Leonara, aren't linked to any larger family tree rather than themselves. They don't belong to a faction. They aren't part of a regional rivalry. They're just a married couple who are just there. And the land that they tend belongs to a family that never visits them. It's a farm without purpose, without conflict, and without character arcs. And that in a province where almost everything is tied to power struggles, revenge plots, or divine prophecy makes it feel eerily disconnected, like it's already been forgotten by the world, the NPCs, and maybe even the game itself. Snowshod Farm isn't frightening. It's not cursed, haunted, or burned out. It's intact, maintained, and functioning. But somehow, when you stand in its wheat field, with Riften's wall just over the ridge and the wind curling low across the crops, it doesn't actually feel alive. It feels abandoned, even if Advild and Leonara and the guards are working the land. Even if the farmhouse door is unlocked and even if the lights are on, something feels like it's missing. Maybe it's the absence of a story, the fact that no one calls you there, that nothing happens, and that no one asks for help. Or maybe it's that the farm feels like it's been forgotten in plain sight. You can hear the bustle of Riften nearby. You can see city guards patrolling not far off or even on the grounds. But no one ever comes to the farm. The place exists as a placeholder, a patch of land with no future, no danger, and no reward. And when you walk away, you don't think of it as a destination. You think of it as a pause, an echo. A small, quiet square of Skyrim that seems to reflect the player more than anything else. Snowshod Farm is practically the loneliest farm in Skyrim. Not because it's cursed, not because it's ruined, but because it isn't. Because it lives in the shadow of power, but doesn't seek it. Because it survives while pretending it doesn't exist. Because its owner once believed in something enough to fight for it, and now tends cabbage like a penance. In a world built around prophecy, war, and glory, places like Snowshod Farm aren't meant to matter.